Just by way of introduction, my name is John Cross, and I'm one of the consultants that works with Slavin Management Consultants, the executive search firm that's been hired by the county to work with the Board of County Commissioners to help them select and make this important decision with your input on the next county executive, county manager. I'm going to be facilitating our time today, so I just wanted to go over a little bit of the logistics of what we thought would be helpful for use of our time. We've identified about 2 hours, but only about an hour and a half, or about an hour and a half of that 2 hours for questions and answers, with the remaining 30 minutes being meet and greet for some unstructured conversation to allow you to approach the candidates directly with any other questions that might come to mind. So from first hour and a half, we'll have the questions and answers portion of the overall meeting. The approach we're taking for each of these community meetings, there's one this morning that we're doing right now, of course, and one this afternoon at the Anthony Fire Station. I'm going to ask the first couple of questions that came in through our online portal. Thank you very much for everybody who's participated and took advantage of that avenue to ask questions. We'll ask a couple of questions to start things off of each candidate. They'll have the same 2 questions. We'll kind of rotate alphabetically through these first 2 questions. And then we'll turn over the time to you to come forward to ask any questions that you might have. We'd ask you to come forward to the mic there, just one after the other, and present your questions. Just be mindful of the nature of your questions, and please limit your questions to 1, although with a limited audience, if you have additional questions, we certainly would be open to those, I think, in the interest of best use of the time today as well. And I'll facilitate those questions as well from the audience members. Generally speaking, to the extent that it's broad enough, unless it's a specific question about a candidate's background or their experience, we'll assume that broader question would be answered by all of the candidates should that be your approach today. So again, thank you for being here today. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to first, before we begin, ask each candidate to take just a couple of minutes and introduce themselves, and then I'll start with the questions. So let's start alphabetically with Scott Andrews. Scott?
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Andrews. I'm currently the Assistant City Manager in Bakersfield, California. Bakersfield is a large city, roughly 500,000 people, all eager to be your neighbor, and it has a lot of similarities to the area here. It's blossoming and ready to expand and take off and leveling up overall as a city. I'm eager to join the organization here because I see Doña at a crossroads, and I want to be a part of that change. As the local government nerd that grew up playing SimCity and really just wants to make a difference in the community, I'm eager to bring change here and help this organization grow and thrive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good morning. My name is Barbara Bencomo. I am currently the Chief Administrative Officer at the City of Las Cruces. Las Cruces and Doña County have been my home for almost 30 years. As I told the commission yesterday, I wasn't born here, but I got here as soon as I could. And I've enjoyed serving the community. My background includes experience in the high-tech sector. I worked in California, Oregon, and Colorado before coming to New Mexico. And then I've also worked in consulting for hospital operations, evaluating hospitals across the U.S. before I came to local government. But I've said often, being a public servant is definitely my favorite title that I've had, and it's one that means the most to me. I really do feel that we're here to serve the community in the best way possible. My areas of interest are helping the organization function as well as possible in order to provide the important services that the community needs, making sure we hear the community and understand what their concerns are so that we can address them. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Lopez, and I am the interim county manager for Doña County. Before stepping into the interim role, I was the emergency manager for Doña County in the city of Las Cruces. Moved into that in January of 2001 after retiring from New Mexico State University, where I had worked for 33 years in law enforcement. I was born and raised here, had some brief opportunities to look at other parts of the country. And as nice as some of the people are in Flint, Michigan, and in Arlington, Texas, my wife and I decided this is where we wanted to raise a family. And we've been very pleased to be here. And I really do appreciate all the hard work of our county employees, volunteers, of community leaders who really do look to move our county forward. As both a resident as well as somebody working for the county, I think that is where we definitely need to move, is forward, not just static at where we've been or things that have been in the past. We've got some great opportunities ahead, and I look forward to being a part of that in whatever role I am in.
Thank you, Stephen. Mark?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Tyner. I have 25 years of experience in local government, 23 of those years as a county administrator. I think you have a very unique community here, from the landscape to the people to everything the county has going on. I think the potential here is unlimited, and it's very exciting. The times that we've been in the community, which is several times over the last year, you can sense a sense of optimism and excitement when you're out and about. That's different from where I am, and it's very refreshing, and I'm appreciative to experience that. I'm looking forward to the rest of today and to talking to as many of you as I can, and I think this is a great opportunity for someone. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everybody. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the first couple of questions. Now, I mentioned I'm going to start asking questions in alphabetical order, but I am going to mix it up a little bit so that the last person who has it would be the last in alphabetical order, doesn't always have the benefit of hearing everybody else's answer first, so I'll be mixing it up just a little bit. But the first question is, broadly speaking, what is the county's role in the community? And what is the county manager's role in the county? So Scott, let's start with you over here.
Thought we weren't going first names again. Thank you, sir. The county's role is to provide excellent services to the community and reach people where they are. The county, sprawling almost 4,000 square miles, has a big task ahead of itself, especially with the staff size and budget size and all the priorities there. So I see my role is looking at those long list of duties, looking at this strategic plan that we've spent a lot of time talking about yesterday, and working with the team and the commission and the community to prioritize and making sure we reset those goals every year so the current workload is incorporated into the strategic plan. Being a unique community, we have the task of meeting the community where they are. We can't just open the doors and invite people in. That's not the way I see us doing business. As your county manager, I will make it my priority to prioritize the community and to meet them where they are. Thank you.
Barbara?
Thank you for the question. So I see the county's role, county government's role, as really understanding the needs of the community and then doing whatever it can to meet them either through their own efforts or through partnerships with the state, with other local government, with nonprofits, with the business community. We have a lot of opportunities to partner with those in our community because we do have a big task. When you look at the services that are provided by government, whether it's public safety, economic development, whether it's bringing in funds so that we can build infrastructure for our community, we have a need to make use of all resources available to us. So that entails a considerable amount of collaboration. The county, as they demonstrated through their strategic plan, then needs to prioritize those needs so that we can have a roadmap for a way forward on how we're going to proceed. The county manager is then tasked with carrying out the wishes of the governing board, and they represent the community, so by that, of the community. And the county manager also has a responsibility of ensuring that the organization has the resources it needs to carry out the goals of the governing board. That means ensuring that we have the right personnel, the training so that they can be successful, equipment, assessment of how we're organized so that we can not have silos, coordinate better internally. So that's a function that's very important that the county manager plays, in addition to continuing to carry the banner for the priorities of the board, making sure that the organization knows every day how the strategic plan fits into the work that they're doing and making sure that the community understands how it's relevant to their daily lives. Thank you.
Barbara. Stephen.
Thank you. The county's role, as I see it, is to meet the core needs of our constituents when it comes to things like health and safety. That doesn't necessarily mean that we are providing direct care or in every area, but it does mean that we have a key role in making sure that those services are available. We need to have, as was discussed yesterday multiple times, a thriving, vibrant, well-planned, well-thought-out county. We can't allow things that have happened in the past with unplanned developments, and I use the term development loosely, to occur without any guidance, without any standards that lead to situations where people are in danger and don't even realize it. That is how we've ended up with colonias over the years. That's how we've ended up with infrastructure that is insufficient or absolutely failing in some cases. And so the county's role, I believe, is to really facilitate making sure, whether that's going to be through a direct county service, through oversight of private industry, through regulation, but making sure that things are planned out in a way that is safe and thoughtful and really maximizes the ability for people in our area to enjoy life. And I think it's well encapsulated in our comprehensive plan, which is obviously public safety, economic development, and quality of life. So those are, I think, some good guiding principles for the county itself. For the county manager's role, I believe the county manager is a mix of visionary, of conduit, and of representation. The county manager needs to develop and share with the administrative team a vision of what the county can be. And that requires getting input from all the constituents that might be involved, all the stakeholders at all levels, and kind of pulling together that shared vision. On the conduit side, the county manager is obviously a conduit from the board to the administrative side of the county and vice versa, but also a conduit from the wishes of our board to our state and federal elected officials, to private industries that we're trying to work with. And then on the representation side, the county manager does represent the county, and when the county manager goes to meetings, is seen as a representative of the county, and that's an important and serious role for the county manager to fulfill.
Thank you, Stephen. Mark?
I believe the role of county government is to provide efficient and effective services to the residents. That's an all-encompassing statement that a lot goes into, but I believe the county should provide any and all services that it can afford to, and is able to any resident in the county. As far as the county administrator's role, the main purpose of the county administrator is to follow the policies and procedures that the county commission has passed. Make sure they're implemented. Make sure they're implemented the correct way. I think another role of the administrator or manager is to be a unifying force for the county, especially with all the other elected officials. Make sure everyone is on the same page. It's also a representative of the commission, which is very important. Anything I know that I do reflects directly on the commission, and I'm very aware of that. So again, I think the county's role interacts directly with the administrator's role. And again, I think a unifying force is very important moving forward and to be able to accomplish things.
All right, thank you, Mark. And before I ask the second question here, we received over 95 questions through the online portal, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful expression of interest, I think, from the community. And again, just wanted to thank everybody for using that method. So it has been very difficult to sort of pare down, as you can imagine, the questions here from all that came in. But in any event, let me go on to question number 2. Mark, I'm going to start with you. We're going to go in reverse this time with this question. What unique skills do you bring to this opportunity that you believe positions you best for this opportunity or this position?
I think honesty, integrity, ethics. I know that if the local government is not trustworthy, does not gain the trust of the residents, you are very ineffective and cannot perform the way that you need to. I try to lead by example. I'm helpful to our employees. I try to provide them with any of the resources that they need in order to complete their job and do that effectively. I think as far as listening skills, I think it's very important to listen to your employees and also the residents in the community. Know what your needs are. If there's a way to fulfill those needs. If there's not immediately, is there a way to plan to work toward completing those needs? So I think honesty and listening and communication are some of the skills that I bring. I may not tell you what you want to hear, but I will always tell you the truth. And that's been very important through the years. So I'm here, I'm accessible, my door's always open for residents and employees. And again, I may not tell you what you want to hear, but I will tell you the truth. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Stephen?
Thank you. From my skill set, I think that my biggest strength is having been here and working in public service to this community, in this community for over 3 decades. And during that time, having an opportunity to unfortunately see people on the worst day of their life, but also see people come out to support them, really representing the caring people that we have in our community, and having the opportunity to help build capacity to support people when those things happen to them, whether that is through a natural disaster, whether that is through an emergency that happens to them or to a loved one. And I think those decades of experience really do bear fruit when it comes to the primary missions of the county government. It gives me a unique perspective, having been there on the street at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning with some of these people. In addition to that, I have a master's degree in strategic planning for critical infrastructures, which I never envisioned would be used in this capacity, but it is really starting to align well with where I think we need to go with utility operations in Doña County to ensure that utility services are fair, are available, and meet the needs of our community. Clean drinking water, the ability to get wastewater away and properly treated, the ability to get power to people who need it. And then on the personal side, I do bring a concept of high ethical standards and transparency to everything that I do. The teams that I've worked with in the past will tell you, if I make a mistake, and I do make them, I try to A, own up to it, and B, learn from it. And that's something that people can expect. I may not always get things right, but I will acknowledge if I'm not. I look for honest feedback from people. I do not want somebody to just be a yes person that works for me. And in fact, those people who have been in my offices over the years have noticed yellow referee flags often on the conference room table. And that just shows the philosophy of if somebody disagrees with something I'm saying, they are free to pick up and throw the flag. Call me on it, and then we can have a good, honest discussion of why we have a disagreement, and am I missing something? Is it poor communication? I'm not explaining myself well. I'm not understanding what they're saying. But it really does open up people to that ability to feel free to disagree, but with the understanding we're trying to move forward. And surprisingly, after the initial 1 or 2 times people throw flags, they actually get the feel of, I don't even need to throw the flag. I'm free to actually just express my ideas. And I think that openness to dialogue is another very important trait that I bring. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Barbara?
Thank you for the question. So I think that I'd like to start by just saying that my guiding principles are integrity, professionalism, and service. Integrity, to me, means doing the right thing, but also in the right way, making sure that I'm bringing people along with me in understanding them, through understanding, making sure that they're teaching me things as well that I might need to know so that I might change direction. So having integrity and respect in the relationships I have with others, very important. Professionalism to me means continuing to learn so I can be a resource for other people. Again, treating people with respect. And then service kind of speaks for its own, on its own. As I mentioned, being a public servant really is important to me and also permeates how I work with my teams as well. I'm there to understand the challenges that they are going through and undertaking their work and hopefully helping them remove roadblocks or brainstorm new solutions, that sort of thing. So those are my guiding principles. The skill that I think is really applicable here is my ability to listen, to learn, and then to lead. I've had careers in 3 different industries successfully, in high tech and healthcare, and now in government. And I think that is really attributed to my openness to hear what's going on, to be able to comprehend what the concerns are, the constraints, the risks, the hopes and needs that need to be addressed, and then being able to find a way forward through partnerships or collaborations to make things happen. I'm well aware that I don't know everything, and I can't do everything either. And with an organization of this size, you do need all the subject matter experts, not only who are in the organization, but also in the community to be part of the solution. And so being able to recognize that, recognize the resources that are needed for whatever the task is at hand, and then being able to stay focused on the outcome that we want really helps to cut through sometimes some of the difficult situations you have when you are trying to implement a big project or a big plan. I think focusing on the outcome that we all want to have, we might want to get there in different ways, helps to bridge sometimes some of the differences that come up and help us to stay focused on what we want to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Scott?
Thank you. Well, what I bring is professionalism and experience from across the country. I've served in Florida, Georgia, California, and hopefully New Mexico. I bring best practices. I was serving in 5 different organizations previously, 4 of those in city management capacity. So coming into a new city doesn't intimidate me. We have experts in every area. We have a talented commission that has deep roots in the community and a community that cares deeply. I bring economic development experience being one of the top priorities here. Right now, all of the economic development is centered around the border in Las Cruces. There's a whole lot of gaps, 4,000 square miles of gaps to help fill in and to reach the 38 colonias and to just level up as an organization. And that starts from an infrastructure standpoint and looking out 20 years and tackling 5-year increments at a time around our strategic plan. You can't eat a whale all in one bite. We have to take small bites, and that's where the strategic plan plays in. That's where resetting our goals plays in. And you don't do that without the community. What I also bring is a deep passion for the community, and you'll hear me say that over and over, but your vision statement is a county for the community, and I think that sets me up for great success. That's something I take a lot of pride in. I also bring an extensive network. Being a long economic development and city management background, I have the largest network in the U.S., according to LinkedIn and ICMA, where I currently serve on several boards, and I'm one of just over 1,000 credentialed managers in the United States. But that's just on paper. To my heart, I care deeply about all I do. I'm a moral compass. I've spoken on ethics several times across the country. I'm incredibly creative, enthusiastic, and I hope to also bring my wife and 4-month-old son here. So that's just a quick snapshot of me.
All right, thank you, Scott. Well, those are the two questions we wanted to start with that came in amongst many, as I mentioned, through the online portal. What we wanted to do at this time is invite members of the audience forward. We have a microphone right there in the middle aisle. To the extent that there are questions from you, we'd like to go ahead and entertain those at this time. So we'd like to open that up at this time. Is there anyone interested in asking a question or two? Yes, sir.
Can never hit the right numbers when you need to open your phone,
Understand,
so I'm
yes.
sorry about that. My name is Frank Spillers. I'm a brand-new resident of Las Cruces, and I just want to tell the people of Doña County that I have never felt welcome like I feel and embraced in this community as I have any place I've lived. And I come from the Midwest, and that's supposed to be the land of enchantment, right? New Mexico is. So thank you for welcoming me here. You have talked about collaboration, and it's kind of a two-part question. If you could define collaboration for me and give me an example of how you have used collaboration in your position that you just had, and how would you use collaboration in implementing the strategic plan for Doña County?
All right, thank you for that question. All right, Barbara, let's start with you on this one, collaboration, and then how have you used that?
All right, thank you so much, Frank, for the question. I really appreciate it. So I mentioned earlier, because local government does not have unlimited resources, we have to partner with the community to execute and achieve the goals that we lay out for ourselves. In my current position at the city, we don't have all the funding that we need, for example, for our capital outlay, capital projects. And so we have an initiative so we can understand what are the needs of the community and what are the opportunities for us to provide infrastructure improvements in collaborating with our service partners. And I'm talking about specifically at Community of Hope Campus, for example. We own that facility, the city does. However, we have external service providers providing services for the unhoused. We have a clinic there, Amador Health. We have just a lot of good services being provided, and they have needs for upgrading the facilities, for executing the master plan for that. And so we need to work with them, not only to understand the needs, to identify the resources, to communicate those to our legislators, and to ensure that we receive the funds needed to help us build out that infrastructure so that we can provide the best services possible. A great example of that most recently is the Casa de Peregrinos expansion. The city purchased property and a facility, and we got a lot of help from the legislature to build out that facility for the needs of the community. So it's very important that we work with our partners and provide funding for the projects that are so important to the community. With respect to the position of the county manager, and yesterday I mentioned the opioid settlement funds and the advisory council, and what a huge project that is to make sure that we are spending money to save lives with the funds that we're receiving. Probably no project that I've worked on has had that much collaboration with the schools, with the state, with people who are directly impacted by addiction. with service providers, with public safety responders, with healthcare experts. There are so many voices that need to be part of that discussion. And it's imperative that we, as we develop recommendations, as the council brings those, advisory council brings those to the commission and to the city council, that we engage with all of those partners in order to then be able to execute the guidance that we receive from the governing boards. It's really going to take the entire community to successfully spend those funds for the best impact on our community, so we can engage in youth prevention, so that we can address equity in distribution and expenditures of those funds, so that we can, as I said earlier, spend money to save lives. So that is a huge project that's going to require a lot of collaboration, and we've already made a great start on it.
Thank you, Barbara. Stephen, let's go to you with this one next.
Thank you. So from my standpoint, collaboration is very much about open dialogue and partnerships. It is about people working together for the common good, towards common goals. And I really believe when done right, it magnifies efforts when we have good collaboration. When done really well, we get a synergistic effect. We get actual, more than the effort going in, we get that, a lot more than that coming back out of good collaboration. And that is something we should always be striving to do. Collaborate with the stakeholders. It is very tempting sometimes for governments and governmental officials to think they know what is best for the constituents. Sometimes they may get it right, but even when they get it right, if they don't collaborate, they lose opportunities. They lose opportunities to build networks, to really create that shared vision, that buy-in among everybody that, yes, this is really what we want to do. So collaboration is absolutely crucial. An example of the most recent collaborative efforts that I've been engaged with come from the Office of Emergency Management. The biggest one with the most recent impact was the development of the all hazards incident management teams. This is something that New Mexico as a state has attempted for almost a decade and had not come through with even a single person trained and ready to go. We started that effort locally here a year ago. It was very much a collaborative effort among all the jurisdictions, all the public safety agencies to say, none of us have the resources on our own to be able to stand up an all hazards incident management team so that when a big disaster happens, we have qualified, capable people to help guide the community during those times. We created a schedule of how to accomplish that. We got that buy-in from the various constituents. And then as we started training, we started meeting, we started building, Ruidoso happened, the Ruidoso wildfires and subsequent flooding. And that really showed the value of that collaborative effort because it wasn't even just about Doña County by the time that happened. We had people coming in from surrounding counties wanting to be part of the Doña County All Hazards Incident Management team. And the first call from the emergency manager in Ruidoso was to people he had sat in classes with during that exact process. He knew who he could trust, and our Office of Emergency Management team was there starting from day one. They took resources, and then after 2 weeks, that's the standard rotation for an all hazards incident management team, they transitioned out to other partners from our all hazards incident management team. So the Las Cruces Fire Department covered weeks 3 and 4. Las Cruces Public Schools covered weeks 5 and 6. Office of Emergency Management's going back potentially this coming week to train National Guard staff on how to do the exact same thing to help carry forward. That shows that we built a resource that was really valuable, not just for our community, but we were able to help other communities as well. And ultimately, what happens there impacts here. Because as the evacuations were taking place in Ruidoso, we had people coming to our communities trying to find shelter. So while OEM was over there, we had people here working to make sure people had a place to stay and were aligned with resources that had already left from here. So they knew still how to make those contacts. From the county management standpoint on building collaboration, it starts with what I mentioned earlier. We have to be approachable. We have to be open. People have to know they can reach out and say, hey, I've got an idea, and that it's going to be listened to. It's going to be taken seriously. And even if it's something that we can't do, that we're not aligned well to do, or doesn't really match with our mission, we're going to take that time, we're going to listen. And if we know of other opportunities to partner people together, we may build collaborative teams that don't involve the county, but involve different people in the community, and putting them together is still going to improve our community. So it's not just about what the county manager does, what the county as a team does, but what we all do as a community. And as we build, it becomes an expectation for collaboration, as it should be. People should have, as you saw from many of the presentations yesterday, that civic muscle in the core of our principles, those vital conditions. That's how we get there, is through that constant collaboration and expectation for that collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Mark, let's go to you next.
My definition of collaboration is organizations and entities working with the county in order to achieve a common goal. Two real-world examples of that is the county that I was most recently at. We had an issue with inmates, female housing. So we collaborated with the city and were able to occupy the city jail and move those female county inmates to that jail, which helped both entities. The county wasn't equipped to build a $40 million jail to switch, to separate the male and female inmates. So that was a benefit to the county. It was also a benefit to the city. Another collaborative effort we collaborated with state agencies, with a city to run water lines outside of the city limits to county residents to provide those people with water that had never had water before. They were on well water. That was something that was new. Generally, you don't hear of a city in Alabama running water lines 10 or 12 miles outside of their city limits. So we were able to do that in working with those multiple agencies. One other example is economic development. I was the economic development director in addition to the county administrator, and being able to attract a business and to develop an industrial park on a very, very small, limited budget, you have to be collaborative, you have to be resourceful. We partnered with private sector, we partnered with state agencies. We were able to acquire grants to get that done, and ultimately attracted big names to that industrial park, and were able to provide employment for our residents. So that's a few of the examples of collaboration.
All right, thank you, Mark. Scott, let's finish that question up with you.
Thank you. The nice thing about going last is a lot of great things have been said. Collaboration to me means doing the most with the resources you have. So when I look at an organization, as a manager, you're looking at it super high level and just seeing the budget versus the population and cost per capita. When you look at that, you have to work backwards from there and making sure that everyone has a seat at the table. Everyone has a task at hand. We can't be all things to all people in a county when you have almost 4,000 square miles and just 800 people to address all those needs. So we work with our playbook, the strategic plan. We work with the community. We partner with our folks in the city. We partner with our nonprofit leaders. So something that comes to mind for me in Bakersfield, everyone is well aware of the homeless crisis. It's really impacting California. In our point-in-time count last year, we were doing a very good job, but we realized we were still seeing an uptick in homelessness, up to 300 more people this year, and that was with the addition of a fully stocked shelter. Realizing we can't do it on our own, we partnered with the Mercy House. We partnered with the county, and we built out several rapid response teams throughout a vast area, so whoever was closest could react to that area. So encampments get addressed more quickly. We have the resources of the private sector who often can do things, and they are more nimble than us. That's one thing as government we do have to own. We can't be all things to all people. Another example that I hope to bring here is streamlining economic development around the borderplex. This area, and something that's very appealing to me, is El Paso, under the radar, has become a powerhouse, and we have Juarez just below us. Even the city folks are doing a fantastic job. We have a lot of success happening around us. We are right in the middle of it. Why aren't we leveraging that completely? So I think building off those relationships we already have, leveling up and tackling these things together. Another example, in my past in the Atlanta area, we managed to bring the Atlanta Braves from Atlanta out to the suburbs. And we put a package together that was enticing enough that we brought the Braves out to Cobb County, 3 miles from where I worked in the city of Smyrna, so I could walk to games after work. Fantastic opportunity. But doing that meant we had to have all the entertainment capacity there. So that meant getting our alcohol ordinances in place, making the open container so it was inviting to our residents that were traveling from elsewhere, getting those pedestrian bridges in place so they could cross safely across the streets, partnering on security and safety when you're bringing thousands of people in multiple times a day. It was an endeavor I think I'll never get to go through again, but it was very enjoyable. And I say all that to say that we can't do all things by ourselves. So we have to work as a community with all of our partners, all of our stakeholders, and bring them together. So to wind up where I started, collaboration to me means looking at the high level and just keeping your eyes on the prize, but at the same time not losing focus of those that are most impacted and those that are suffering the most. So we have to keep that full picture together and work together to unify those. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Scott. Let's go back to the audience. What additional questions do we have from you for the candidates? Yes, sir.
Israel Chavez, good morning. It's hard to just pick one question. I don't think we have time for very many, although we might. The county has historically reduced services every year, right? We had a county hospital. I'm a little concerned that at least one candidate has memorial medical experience, which is now being investigated by the Attorney General. So but on the other hand, when candidates are making comments about how many services we can provide, right now it doesn't appear that the county is meeting its obligations in the services it should be providing. I want to know specifically how the county is going to do that, especially as it relates to folks who are experiencing homelessness, all the issues that are currently challenging our communities, and tying in the biggest resources in each of these communities that the county has, which is the community resource centers, or the community centers, which function more like senior centers right now. How can a county manager make sure that the county is actually meeting its bare minimum obligations and not just saying continually, we can't do anything, we can't do anything. We had a county hospital in this community for a long time. So I'd like to hear less like paralysis by local government and more about how we're going to get it done.
Okay. Thank you very much. County services, minimum required, and then enhancing those. Stephen, we'll start with you on that question.
Well, thank you for the question. I am going to say that if there is a perception that our county services have become less and less over the years, that is absolutely something that we need to address, because we should not be reducing. And I know that there had been discussions about the county getting out of operation of utility systems. And we have come to a realization we cannot do that. For the good of our communities, not only can we not get out of what we've been doing, we need to do more of it. And That's growth in a number of areas related to our services. We definitely need to be intentional. We can't necessarily take on everything in the next 6 months. We do have to plan things out on a priority basis. Some of the presentation I gave yesterday afternoon on implementation of our strategic plan kind of highlights some of those opportunities, and included one that you mentioned, which is how do we address, as some people have been calling it, homelessness, some people call it the unhoused, some people call it people that are on the margin of housing, just depending on what their situation is. I want to start off by saying that's actually a spectrum. It's not just people who have houses and people who are living in tents on the street. There are a lot of people in different situations throughout, and we need to make sure we're not forgetting any of them. I know that we have challenges in our community with people who, for example, are in the foster care system. And when they hit 18 or they graduate from high school, state support is over. And we don't have great transition plans for them. The state in the past has said, well, we're gonna line them up so they can go to college, which starts 3 months after they graduate. If their foster family's nice, they may keep them in place until college starts, but that's not always a guarantee. And then they have no place to go to when school is out. We didn't realize how significant that was until COVID at New Mexico State University, when we had over 750 students who, when other universities around the country were saying, go home, go home, go home, we're shutting down, had no place to go. And so NMSU stayed open. We also have challenges with people who are living in their vehicles. That is better than living in a tent. But what services are we making available for people who are in that circumstance? Do we have a place they can go to shower? Do we have a place they can go use a restroom? Do we have a place they can just safely park at night? Do we have a way for people who are transitional? They're trying to dig out of those circumstances, to move into low occupancy instead of being in a congregate shelter environment. Do we have a way to address people who are in family situations, who also are housing challenged? I've found people at New Mexico State University who, upon graduation, that was a huge day for them because it meant they could get a job now for them and their kids who had been living couch surfing or in a vehicle for multiple semesters, and we never even knew it. So I think we've really got to, A, engage with the people who do know who need services, B, engage with people who are willing to have input, to have effort into the process, and look at how we can bring solutions to the table. It's not going to fit everybody. There's no one easy solution. If there was, somebody'd already be doing it. But we need to look at how we address each of the tiers, where people are, and find ways that we can help people. It is actually much cheaper for government to keep people from slipping into homelessness than it is to try to bring them back out. So, thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Mark, let's go to you next.
Homelessness is one big area that needs addressing in many, many places. But it's not the only essential service that needs to be addressed. Counties provide many, many essential services. People lots of times place garbage at the bottom of the list. Don't pick up garbage for a couple of weeks and see what situation you're in. Animal control. There are lots of things that the county does, and I would provide an assessment of what was being accomplished, what was being serviced. If there are budgetary restraints, is there a way to collaborate or partner? Is there a way to contract that service out to still provide the service and be able to do it more efficiently? And I think talking with the community, seeing what the real world issues are, what is paramount in their mind, that is information that I would communicate to the commission and to address in that manner. But I think it's very important that all services be examined. And again, the county is there to provide services to the residents. There has to be a priority. And I think that my communication with the commission would be basic human services first and then work down. But you have to take care of your residents to be an effective county government.
Thank you, Mark. Scott, let's go to you next.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chavez. A lot of what I want to contribute has been said, but in your role as county manager, your job is to, again, collaborate in the community. The strategic plan that we've worked on, the nice thing about it is the game plan is there. It is in place. So I would propose working backwards from there and, again, prioritizing this. Personally speaking, I'm very empathetic to that situation as someone that's personally benefited from some of those. And it has also seemed my grandmother who raised me add years to her life being in one of those facilities you described. So I do know the value of those and it resonates with me. So it works a couple different ways. We can continue to partner and then if it really is a top priority for us, we put our money where our mouth is. So one of the goals of the strategic plan is to utilize the resources, the taxpayers' money, as prudent as we can. So what we would do from there is take a look at what our major expenses are over the next few years. And I see this is a top priority from the outside looking in. And in conversations with the commission, I believe they see this as a priority as well, sir. And I think as your county manager, we would work with our partners, work with the city, work with our nonprofits to address these needs. Again, this comes back to resources and being able not to say no, but not now, and doing it in a way where we care and we prioritize and we budget for it. So it's something we can address within a reasonable time frame. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Scott and Barbara.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I echo the concerns about understanding the level of services that the county is providing. I think that one of the important aspects of having a strategic plan is that in order to measure success towards some of those goals, we're going to have to understand the baseline of what we're doing now and how well we're doing it so that we can track the efficacy of those services and whether they are improving or increasing in the community or otherwise. And so we really do need to understand the baseline and the level of service, and that would be one of the things to undertake as we implement the strategic plan. I also agree that the county provides a lot of different essential services. Obviously, there are a lot of things, whether it's public safety, whether it's utilities that have been mentioned, quality of life services, infrastructure, that are competing for funds. And so when we look to expand services, as has been pointed out as well, we need to understand what resources are available. Sometimes that's a matter of looking for efficiencies in the current operations. Can we implement technology to help us do things better? Are there best practices that we could implement to free up resources? Are there partners who can help us leverage what we're doing in order to reach a broader swath of the community or to achieve something greater? So looking at efficiencies in the organizations can sometimes free up resources to expand services. Sometimes, though, we also have to make trade-offs with programs that are in place. You evaluate current programs, what's the utilization, what are the outcomes of the programs? Are there things that were put in place that are no longer relevant or as impactful, and is there an urgent need that you might need to utilize those funds or resources for? Maybe you undertake something like that as a pilot so that you can temporarily reassign resources and then evaluate a new program or a service to see if it's having the desired outcome. And then, of course, we need to look at other funding mechanisms like grants, like bonding capacity, to see if we can increase those resources for the city for different services that we can provide. I agree that healthcare in this community is a great concern. Access to healthcare, access to behavioral health. There's numerous aspects of healthcare that have been discussed and where there are current actions being taken. With respect to Memorial Medical Center, the city and county jointly owning that facility is actually a godsend, in my opinion. In many times when private equity has purchased hospitals, they've sold the real estate out from the operations, and then the hospital operation has to pay back exorbitant leases, and that really drains resources. The fact that the city and county continue to own that land, that asset, that facility is really a tremendous responsibility. And with that, we have the opportunity now to look at the lease agreement as well, the terms for service to the community, understand where there might be shortcomings or where we can address gaps with change of leadership, both here at the county and at the hospital. It's, as I said, a great time to do that, and it's a great responsibility of the city and county to do so. I had the opportunity to work for the hospital in 2002 when, unfortunately, they were in breach of some of their loan covenants and had to bring in an external organization to evaluate their operations. And so I was glad to be able to come in and help to do that work so that we could identify for the community where there needed to be some improvements. And then subsequently, I worked for the nonprofit that was winding down after the hospital was sold in order to establish the escrow fund that was put in place in case there were claims subsequent to the sale of the operation that might have come in, and also to wind down the pension plan for the folks who work for the nonprofit. So that's my involvement with our local hospital. And then, as I mentioned, I worked in evaluating operations for hospitals nationwide. So I would certainly be able to help bring that experience in that evaluation for our community as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Let me open it up to the audience again. Are there any additional questions for our candidates? Or if you have another question that you wanted to ask, come on forward. We have the time. Okay.
Thank you for the second chance. I appreciate that. Culture is a huge part of an organization and of a community and of a county. We've talked a lot about the city, but there is a whole vast more territory around the county. Can you define how you build a culture within the organization, and how does that relate to building a culture around the county?
Okay. Thank you for that question. Culture. Mark, let's start with you on that question.
As far as building a culture in an organization, I think a lot of that is done by example. How you react to certain situations, uncomfortable situations. Knowing your staff and employees are watching you and how you react to certain situations. Dealing with elected officials. And a lot of times those elected officials aren't always happy because you can't grant them what they've requested. How you react to citizens when they come in and they aren't happy. I think example goes a long way. Integrity, professionalism. I never want my governing body to have to apologize for the way I've acted. That's something that I'm keenly aware of. Commissioners have a difficult job. It is my job to assist them as the county manager. But again, I think ethical actions, transparency, communication, being able to listen, developing your employees, continuing education. It's an evolving organization, and you need to continue to move forward to be able to do that. And again, I think how the manager acts not only reflects directly on the governing body, but also it indicates to your employees what you're expected to do and how you're to react to certain situations to provide effective and efficient services to the residents.
All right, thank you, Mark. Scott, let's go to you next. Ben?
It's a great question. Thank you so much. Culture is everything in an organization, particularly when even some of your staff members. Just a reminder for everyone, people in local government do this because they care deeply about the community. They don't certainly don't do this for the money or for the applause. Saying that culture goes a long way towards retaining and attracting talent. We have a fantastic machine of New Mexico State University right down the street. The county's already doing a fantastic job through its internship program. I would hope to build on that. And it starts from within. I think that starts with getting to know your people as individuals, knowing their passion, knowing their spark, what makes them light up. And what I've always found in my philosophy centers around you get people doing what they're passionate about, and they're going to do a much better job. Then you give them the tools, the professional development, you break down the barriers, whatever those may be, and you empower the team. And you lean in when there's issues, but other than that, you let your leaders lead. I think that also goes for me, the way I carry myself. I heard Mark mention some fantastic ideas, so I'll steal some of those. But modeling the way and being the billboard for all you represent. So that vision and mission statement, those goals, we need to represent that in our actions, in our activities day to day. That resonates then throughout the entire organization. And if we follow through on what we're doing and all this talk about being in the community, people see that. They take notice. And you may not always be on the same side, and they may not always agree with you on issues, but over time, they will respect you, and that respect turns to rapport. Rapport turns to trust.
Thank you, Scott. Barbara, let's go to you next with that one.
Thank you for the question, Frank. I agree with Mark and with Scott on some of their answers in terms of culture being so important. When I looked at the values that were laid out in the Doña County Strategic Plan, I saw a lot of things that resonated with my own values: transparency, authenticity, integrity, honesty, reliability and dependability, civility and respect, value, and serving the community. And those are great things to have on paper to make sure that we communicate those as important. But it's even more important to show them in the actions that we take, in the interactions that we have. And with that, I agree with Mark. It's so important to walk the walk, so to speak, that in everything you do, you show that you're supporting those values. That's how you instill the importance of them in your culture. That's how you can make sure that you are in alignment with the values of the organization, and that those who are watching you, as Scott said, we're in public service, we're always under scrutiny, and we should be, because we're there to serve the public. We're there to be stewards of the funds that they provide us with. We're there to provide them with the things that they need to thrive. And so we do need to be transparent about the things we're doing and how we're doing them. And how we're doing them really goes a long way in influencing culture. There are things that we can do besides actions, and that includes developing the right policies to support the behaviors and the kinds of interactions that we want to see from ourselves, from our team members, so that we can more effectively have a positive, productive culture, both in the organization and then in the community. With respect to the community, you mentioned there's a lot of focus on the city or maybe certain parts of the county, and it's a huge area. And I talked a little bit about this yesterday, but I think part of showing respect to the entire community and showing that we value the entire community is really going to where people live and work. I really support the idea of having more engagement and opportunities for interaction out in the community, whether it's in the community centers, fire stations, schools, wherever it is that we can meet people, whether there's a festival someplace, and you can be there and just be accessible to answer questions that people might have, general questions. There's so many different ways that we can be where people are so that they can trust that we're there to be accessible, that we're there to be responsive, and we're there to be transparent. So I think that's an important aspect of engaging with the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Stephen?
Thank you for asking a culture question. I think the other three have done a really good job of talking about the need to have high standards and to live by those standards. So I'm going to take it actually to a slightly different level, slightly different direction. Once we've got those things in place, we also need to look at why we are here. And that's also an important part of culture. And with my team at the Office of Emergency Management, we sat down, we developed our motto, find a way to say yes. We really latched onto that to the point that we had it engraved on our challenge coins. It really embodies a service culture, and that is what we are as public servants. That is what we should be doing. When we can, and we can't always, but when we can, we should be trying to find a way to help people who are asking for a service. And we should be doing it with excellence. And our staff should know that. Now, I said when we can. We can't always say yes. We run a detention center, for example. A prisoner wants out. We're not going to just say yes. But, you know, in a lot of our services, we can say yes. We can find a way to say yes, or we can connect them with people who can help them out in their circumstances. And I think it's very important to set those service expectations. Now, while the county manager plays an important role in that, it actually goes all the way back to the beginning of an employee's relationship with the county. When they apply for a position, they should understand what our culture and expectations are. When they interview, we should make it clear, these are our expectations. If you want to be part of our team, great. This is what we're going to ask you to do so that people coming in understand it. And then we should have a good, intentional onboarding and mentoring process to make sure that no matter what fantastic skill sets we have recruited them to bring to the table, we now also embed them in our culture of success and service so that they are meeting the needs of our community. And then we need to hold them to that. I have found that actually that is probably one of the easiest things to do once the culture is of success and service and high performance, because people hold themselves to that standard. Their coworkers hold them to that standard. And the supervisor doesn't have to do as much managing, they can do more leading. And that allows the organization then to move to the next level. So those are my perspectives on how we really implement a good culture. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Stephen. Additional questions? Before I get
The guy who just moved here got an extra question. So.
I know, I'm going to go to you, but I think he was, raised his hand right before you did, so thank you. We'll come to you next unless there's somebody that hasn't asked a question yet.
You can have it back. Thank you, Mr. Cross, commissioners, for allowing me to engage with the candidates. My question is more on your financial well-being in the future. My question is actually twofold, and in order to make it easier for our people who are not local, the largest municipality in the county is about to set upon everyone in the county the largest GRT increase that could possibly be. The county will have to, because this municipality is the largest vendor for the county, then everyone will have to participate without the vote, which is scheduled for this GRT increase. So in your strategic plan yesterday, and Mr. Lopez listed a number of collaborations between this municipality and the county, which could be expensive to maintain. Would it not be, at this time, an idea to think about annexation of those sections of the county back to the city so that you don't have this financial burden. Since the city is going to make all of the county pay its highest GRT almost in the state. And so in order to grow those small municipalities, the county will have to decide and whether or not it will participate in allowing them to have the amenities and services and vendors without the GRT, which will affect all of us. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for that question. Appreciate that. Scott, let's start with you with that question.
I had a feeling you were going to send it this way. But that's a very interesting and tough question, too. And approaching it as an outsider looking in, again, this comes back to prioritization. I was hoping you'd let my city neighbor here answer that question first. But again, this goes back to resources, budgeting, and long-term strategic plan. Part of best practices is looking at an annexation study every 5 years, no matter what. Any organization I've ever served in, and I think that's something worth looking into as far as dissolving or turning over parts. I would defer to some of the experts on staff and commission, but in annexation studies, you do look at all possible scenarios. Saying that, it comes back to budget and prioritization and sticking with our strategic plan and just focusing on high-level principles. And as some people have already spoken about, and I've had a great experience in other communities, is looking at the bond market and providing those services. But when it comes to that, that's a four-letter word, literally. So approaching everything very strategically and looking at a 20-year long-term goal. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Scott. Barbara?
Thank you, Mr. Shervanek, for the question. Yes, financial well-being actually goes to the heart of my expertise, since that's my background. With respect to any public entity, it is certainly the responsibility of management to ensure that they have the resources needed to provide the services needed. That could be structured very differently from one entity to the other, and it is between the city and the county. For example, the city has a very large proportion of their revenue coming in from GRT. That's not the case with the county. The county has more revenue coming in from property tax and more revenue from grants. So it's important that the manager understand the funding structure for the entity that they're working with and where the opportunities are. I mentioned bond capacity earlier. We look at those kinds of things. Certainly tax capacity. Are there increments that have not been implemented, and how would those be implemented, and why would they be implemented? I think it is important for the city and county to coordinate. That's definitely an opportunity. I remember back in, I believe it was 2015, when there was the implementation of the hold harmless GRT increment. And that could certainly have been better coordinated between the city and the county as well. I do want to emphasize that the measure that's being contemplated right now will be a ballot measure. So even though there is an element of GRT that could be imposed by the city council, what's coming forward will be on the ballot in the November election. And so hopefully we will hear from the community as to whether they support that or not. Just a word in general on resources and the responsibility that we have as public entities to use them well. I think it's our responsibility to understand when we implement something like a GRT for capital improvement, that we're very carefully looking at our capital improvement plan. Not only what we want to build, what's in progress, what has been built, and what the operational impacts are of those investments that we make on the infrastructure side. Because as you know, it's not just building the facilities or the roads or the utility infrastructure, it's also maintaining it. So it's very important that the county manager understand what those costs are and then understand how that you could undertake to fund those expenditures, which are so important to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Stephen?
Thank you for a very complex question. I'm going to try to answer it fairly quickly. For those who are not familiar with it, there are several aspects it's important to understand. One, yes, the city of Las Cruces is asking to increase the GRT within the municipal boundaries. But yes, that can impact people living in the county because a lot of them do get their services within the city of Las Cruces, but not all. Not a lot of people from Chaparral drive to Las Cruces for services. On the annexation side, though, the city of Las Cruces can't just annex anything and everything they want. There are requirements. You can ask the city of Sunland Park how difficult those are sometimes to meet. They have been in a battle to try to annex the Santa Teresa area for many years. There were actually court actions just this year on that have kind of reset it back. Annexation is not going to be the answer to providing services in some areas, in particular because people have a choice as to whether or not they want to be annexed, and they can fight it quite successfully, as Santa Teresa has shown. As to the bigger issue on taxation, for those who do not know, the gross receipts tax in the city of Las Cruces is over 8%. The gross receipts tax in the unincorporated areas is only 6.25%. So if Walmart, Albertsons, Target, or any other business would like to build in the unincorporated areas, we are happy to have that discussion and see how we can support them in doing that, to give an opportunity for people to then have choice. And that might sound flippant, but it's not, because we actually have some developments that are underway right now that might bring some of those opportunities to some parts of our county. And that is really exciting. We actually have the opportunity to see some land right now that is bringing the county almost $0 in property taxes be developed into hundreds of millions of dollars worth of property that then is helping us serve the rest of the community. So that's kind of that economic development side, and why economic development starts becoming really important. It brings jobs to the area, but it also helps give us the funding to support a lot of our critical infrastructure and our critical services. And then I'm gonna throw out one thing that I know will be controversial with some people, but I have said I am about transparency. We have some taxes in place that don't have to remain permanently. And if the voters so choose, we might in the next few years have an opportunity to replace those taxes with something that directly benefits our county residents. And for those who have figured it out, yes, I am talking about the spaceport tax. Once we have paid off the bond, and that has been controversial for our residents for many years, that is $15 million every year in gross receipts taxes that could be used for other purposes if the voters so choose. That is not a decision that the Board of County Commissioners will make. It is not a decision that the county manager will make. But I certainly will encourage our residents to consider that, because right now, the money we send for construction in the spaceport in Sierra County, the gross receipts taxes off of that construction are going to Sierra County. Our residents have certainly invested, I think, a fair share towards the spaceport. I think the spaceport is now on the cusp of being able to be very successful with some of the tenants they have there. And we now need to look at, is there a better use of that tax GRT if we pay off the spaceport bonds, and we then shift it to something that is benefiting our constituents here in the county, especially when it comes to our essential services, so that we're not reducing. So that's just my quick take on a rather complex taxation question. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Mark?
I think financial stability is imperative for the county to achieve. I think it's incumbent upon the county government to prepare for the unexpected. That's why we budget every year. That's why you have capital budgets. That's why you develop a strategic plan. to be able to ensure financial stability. If you have a natural disaster, if you've spent everything that you have, it's hard to meet those direct, immediate needs. That's one thing I think the county needs to do. Also, as far as an assessment, I think that is what I would do, being new to the area. I would do a total assessment to learn what is in place. Why is it in place? Is there a way that we can do it more efficiently? Is there a way we can do it more effectively? Can we do it with less impact on county residents? There is a distinct difference between city and county government. You know, and a lot of times they don't align. That's not to say that you don't work collaboratively to assist both of you, but they have a city council. The county has a county commission. So it's important to know that there is a distinct line. The unincorporated area is, even though the city residents are covered in county districts, the people in the unincorporated area don't have any other representation besides the county commission. People living inside the city do. So it's imperative as far as financial stability, and I think that you have a very professional county commission here that is truly concerned about your residents and want to do the best for them. So again, I think financial stability is imperative, and also a total assessment is what I would need to do to be able to ascertain if there are any changes or any other things we could do to lessen that impact.
All right, thank you, Mark. We have a little bit more time left. I just want to, before we go, sir, I know you're burning to ask an additional question, but I want to go to any member of the audience that has not yet had an opportunity to ask some questions. So, ma'am, I think that would be you. Okay, competition for the microphone. Ma'am, what is your question?
Before that. Good afternoon. My name is Gina Eugenia Montoya Ortega, and first and foremost, I am a taxpayer of Doña County. As a county manager, you are the commission's only employee and responsible for all its staff. Yet you have electeds who are not your employees, whom are elected by the whole county and not only by one of the 5 districts that the county has and have to answer to all the people of Doña County. Since some of these electeds do have the best interests of all the people of Doña County, and as you may or may not know, we have had some electeds who are willing to go toe-to-toe with you and the commission. In your previous experiences, can you give an example of how you feel that this situation can be handled better? And on a kind of a real quick second note, Doña County, to me, I'm born and raised. Doña County is not people, is not a place where people. And for those that maybe are not familiar, I really hope that you do get to know the people of Doña County and how you, coming from the outside, if you don't understand them, how you can associate with them. Because there's a lot of people that they just don't understand. You can't read it in a book and you can't just learn it.
All right, thank you very much for that question. Let's start with Mark on this. Mark, elected department heads, the constitutional officers, relationships and collaboration.
I believe that it is imperative as the county manager to maintain a positive relationship with all of the elected officials. I have been able to do that for 25 years successfully, 23 in county government. I've dealt with and maintained positive relationships with our sheriff, our probate judge, our tax assessor, tax collector, revenue commissioners. Our coroners are elected. And it always hasn't been pleasant, because if an elected official asks for something that the county cannot deliver, cannot provide to them, I've always been upfront and open. We've always maintained communication. I tried to have a relationship with those elected officials year-round and not only at certain times of the year. And I've I've been successful at doing that. I think it's the county manager's responsibility to be a link, a unifying figure between all of the elected officials. You all have duties just like the county commission does, and most of the time they are completely separate. Sheriff, for instance, law enforcement. Well, law enforcement is the sheriff's main area, and that's what they concentrate on. They look to us to provide funding for them. I've always tried, always been able to provide the necessities of what they actually need. And when the funding is available, have tried to give them everything that they've wanted. Again, I've been able to have a relationship with all those elected officials, and we talk daily or weekly, and in communication. If I know of something that's going on in the county, my county commissioners are going to know about it. If I know something that's going to affect any of those other elected officials, I am on the phone talking to them, letting them know what I know, just to make sure that they're aware. So I think it's my responsibility, first to the county commission, but also to the other elected officials, to ensure that everyone is on the same page. We all need to be, we're one county, we're Doña County. We need to be pulling in one direction. Whenever you have issues, conflict, you're not accomplishing or being efficient as you can. That really bothers me. If I have an elected official and I know they're having issues with the county commission, I'm not comfortable with that. I want everybody to be on the same page, and I do anything I can to be that buffer, to be that connection between the county commission and the elected officials, because I feel that the elected officials, other than the county commission, they're essential. They're essential to the operations and the services provided to residents. So I want everybody to be on the same page. I want to do everything in my power to be able to communicate, to be a partner. I want to be trusted by the other elected officials. I want them to know that when I tell them something, it's going to be the truth. I may not tell you what you want to hear, but I will tell you the truth. And I just want to be that figure that's trusted and that can move the county, help move the county forward in the same direction.
All right, thank you, Mark. Stephen, let's go back to you.
The challenges between our constitutionally created and elected officials versus our county administration and our county commissioners is not unique to Doña County. I understand it happens in at least one or two other counties in New Mexico, if not all 33. But it is absolutely something that we need to make sure we are addressing as well as we can. For the county manager, I think the county manager plays a couple key roles. Number one is when an elected official comes in new, they need to welcome them with open arms. They need to say, congratulations, here is where your office is, here's your staff, and here is the support team from the rest of the county. What are your goals, and how can we help you accomplish your goals? I don't know of very many elected officials who got into office without a plan of what they wanted to do, without some change they wanted to see take place. And if they got enough votes for that to occur, clearly there are enough people in the community that want to see some alignment in that direction, and we should recognize that. And that doesn't mean we're always going to be able to, say, hey, yeah, you've got an unlimited budget, we're gonna raise taxes on people to give this office another 300 employees, but there are ways that we can better serve our elected departments. And it really does start with that day one. Now, if we've missed day one, we've missed year one, then we probably have some trust issues. And the county manager has to welcome the elected officials back in and say, we really are here to work with you. We are here to serve you just like you are serving the community. Because an elected officials department that is not working well, trust me, the county manager's office still gets calls about it. It's not just the elected official. And no, we have no authority over the elected official and how they're operating their department, really. But again, if we understand their goals, we can help find the resources that they need to accomplish those. We can better support them, we can better serve them. There are certainly, I mentioned earlier, that culture of service that's internal as well as external. That means our departments working in the county that serve other departments need to also be asking, how can we find a way to yes? How can we help them accomplish what they're trying to achieve? Again, it's not always going to be possible, but we can often find common ground and a way to get things to occur. And sometimes that is also in going back and revisiting things. We can't go back 20 years, we can't go back 50 years, but we can go back to recent things and see if there were opportunities we could have and should have taken advantage of, things that we might still be able to correct through board action to address some of the challenges that an elected official or their department is having. So I really do see the county manager, even though they don't answer to that elected official, being a conduit, not always a champion of the elected official, because the elected official has power, the county manager does not. They can come to the board any meeting they want to and provide input and make statements to the board and make requests to the board. But we should be there with the ability to say, yes, we can support that, or we would like to support that, but here are the things that we will need from the commission, so the commission can then make their decisions on how they allocate those resources. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Barbara, let's go to you.
Thank you for the question. I agree that the situation that you described really focuses at its core on relationship building, team building, and trust. I think that it is the responsibility of the county manager to understand the needs of all the constituents, that's internal and external, who require resources and services from the county. I've had a lot of experience at the city in budget development, and I know that that can be a very difficult time for the department heads and for other entities. We have a municipal court judge who's elected, who's also kind of in a similar situation as the elected department heads here at the county. We have to collaborate and understand what the needs are, and we have to have everybody understand what the resources are that we need to share or divide in order to provide the services and programs that are needed. We don't have unlimited resources, so that's why I say that sometimes that's a very difficult process to go through. But I think when you undertake it in a transparent way, when you show respect and share information about what the criteria is for the information needed in order to make good decisions, to involve people in the decision-making process, I think you have a better outcome in terms of how people feel about the decisions after, before, during, and after that they're made. We are all on one team. We all play different roles. I think it's important for the county manager to understand what the strengths are of the different elements there are in the organization, and to respect those and to value those, but also just to work with all of the programs and departments to try to maximize the value that we're providing to our organization. That always requires hard decisions. I have never had a budget year go by where we had enough money for all of the requests that were being made by the departments. And the departments and entities are very sincere in their needs. They really feel like we absolutely need to do X, Y, or Z. We might not be able to do it in the way that they want, but that also takes problem-solving skills to try to identify sometimes creative solutions or alternate resources or maybe partnerships where a couple of departments bond together in order to provide the outcome that we're looking for. When you have these kinds of, when you can build the relationships, it really helps to get through those difficult times. And again, that involves showing trust and respect and involving people in the process so that you can understand what the concerns are and then you can address them from a problem-solving standpoint. I think this goes back to our discussions earlier about engagement and customer service. A lot of times we focus only on our external customers, but internal to an organization of this size, we all work together. And like I said, we're all on one team and we all need to treat each other the way we treat our external customers, hopefully that's with respect and being able to listen and understand and come to an agreement on what will work in this period of time and maybe setting a path in the future to get to where we all want to be so that we're all sharing the responsibility of having that discussion and taking the right actions for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Scott?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for being here on a Saturday morning. I'm going to oversimplify this, and then I'll elaborate. I think if you want good partners, you have to be a good partner, and that's really simple. To me, that looks like monthly meetings with all the stakeholders. Whether in my current organization, the city and county meet together every month to discuss issues that we can potentially partner on and use our taxpayer money as fiscally prudent as we can, and to work through major issues that we may see coming down the pipeline. I would want to take that a step further and humbly ask the commission to consider an annual retreat, or in previous organizations, I've done that at least twice a year, where we invite all the stakeholders together. These huge strategic plans are done in 5-year increments, and a lot change, including county managers and even commissioners coming and going. So making sure we're all on the same page, talking through all those issues together in a room, and really getting in the weeds a little bit, because everything we talk about with the plan is very, very high level. In order to execute that, we have to deliver on a different basis. So in addition to the monthly meetings, I think just being professional, you don't always have to agree, but knowing where everyone stands. And when it comes to position requests, again, I've been in 5 previous organizations where each city charter is totally different, and people report to different folks, whether it's clerks or sheriffs or police chiefs for that matter. When it comes to position requests, one thing because everyone gets every position they want, right? That was my attempt at humor, but I think looking at historical requests, that's something I've looked at doing, being in the community, is looking back 5 years. So certain positions may have been asked for 5, 6, 10 years sometimes. So having a plan that, no, I know this new one came in and we really need it and this is a new priority, but these are ones that have been asked for years, and here's why. I think explaining the why to all the partners in the room is a step that we often miss. People have these requests, but I like to have our budget meetings in particular very transparent so everyone gets to have some input on the process. And even if they're not getting exactly what they want, whether it's vehicles, buildings, facilities, fire engines, or staff, they understand the why in that. And the phrase I often like to use is spoke within the wheels. So the different areas and departments know what each other is doing and how they can serve each other together and be a good partner.
All right, thank you, Scott.
John,
Pardon me?
I'm sorry. Before the time elapses, we do have some questions that will come in offline. So if we have a moment to include 1 or 2 of those, that would be nice.
I was just going to mention we went over a little bit past our hour and a half for the Q&A portion. I wanted to allow a little bit more time with respect to questions. I'll defer to members of the commission if they'd like to have another. Okay, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so why don't we go ahead and, I need to go ahead and read one of those and we'll start with that.
Okay, so this is more of an employee-related question. I'll do one employee and then another community one. If selected, what would you do to make our blue-collar workers feel part of the organization? As of today, many of them feel disconnected from the government center and its building. What would you do to improve employee engagement?
Okay. Barbara, let's start with you on that one, and then Stephen, you'll be up next.
All right, thank you for the question. Yeah, when I first started working at the City of Las Cruces, I came into what was then the Facilities Department. And we had a lot of department workers who were blue collar in the trades. And actually, one of the things that was most valuable to me in those early days at the city was to just go out on service calls with them, to understand the work they were doing, how they were doing things, the challenges that they had. I remember one of the first trips I took was to the basement of our municipal court building, which was a little bit scary. If you've ever been in that building, it's an old building. Taking a look at the boiler, there was a situation there with the equipment, but it really helped to understand what the needs and issues were, and I think it, for myself, but also helped to validate the work that was being done. It's important, and it's important for us to help them to do their work as successfully as possible, and whether that means resources, whether that means training, whether that means recognition when an important project comes to a close. I think those are all things that we should do to help any of our employees feel that what they're doing is meaningful and helpful. Certainly, we're talking about blue collar, but I would like to expand that to all employees when we allow people to be able to feel that they can come forward with their concerns, that they feel that we're listening to them and that we can provide the resources that they need to be successful, that we can understand what their hopes and dreams are, what their development would like to be, and we can support that through training or various types of project assignments or other kinds of participation on committees. And then, as I said, with recognition, I think that really helps to build the morale of the organization and really to just show the value of the folks who are doing the very hard work that's being done within the county organization. I have been involved in negotiation for contracts, and that's another opportunity, sometimes a difficult opportunity, but another opportunity to understand what the needs and concerns are. Those are periodic, of course, but we need to, at all times, take the stance that we need to be accessible, responsive, and transparent in our communication with staff so that they know the value of the work that they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Stephen?
For those who are not aware, yes, the County Government Center is a big building with lots of county employees, but we have county employees spread across 3,800 plus square miles. Many of them do not ever come to this building unless it's for a specific purpose. They don't come here to show up for work and then go somewhere else. We've got, for example, our road crews who may report straight to a road grader that we keep parked at a remote location. And then they start their workday there, they end their workday there. We have people in the detention center who do not come here on a regular basis. We have fire crews who do not come here unless there's a need to, because we have fire stations for them. The office I was last in, Office of Emergency Management, not located here in the County Government Center. All of those people, very crucial to being able to provide our services. Our utility operators, during some flooding in 2021, had an opportunity to work with some of those people, literally in the middle of the night in knee-deep water, and they didn't feel that connection to the county. And that's shame on us in this building, because we often are very building-centric. We're going to do an employee event in this building. We're going to recognize employees at a meeting in this building. We have to do more to connect with those employees who are not stationed here, do not come here. At the same time, we do still have to recognize the people here, but we've had some recent discussions about the need to, for example, when an employee hits a critical anniversary, they've been with the county for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Instead of inviting them here to accept an award, why don't we take all of the key officials to their work site and celebrate with them and their work team where they are at. Let them know it's not about them coming here, it's about us knowing they are part of our team. And the more we take advantage of those opportunities, I think, to go out into those workplaces, to see and meet with those people, let them know we understand what's going on. Yes, they have supervisors that are working with them, kind of guiding their work. That's who they communicate with on a regular basis. But I do know they appreciate seeing other people from the county, even if it's not somebody that is in the county manager's position, even if it's not a county commissioner. But by all means, they certainly like seeing the county manager and the county commissioners also. And maybe we need to set up a kind of a tour on a regular basis. Every other month, we hit a different district. And the commissioner from that district can be part of the tour. Others can participate if they want. But we go out and we visit the employees in those areas, their work sites, and really get eyes on the working conditions that they are going through. Because we're making decisions sometimes without that background, that knowledge. So I think it really is about not just waiting for complaints, not just one person going out. We really need to take a team, let them know that this team is there for them. Even if they are not coming to the building, we are willing to go to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Mark?
Basically, I think there are a couple of things that you could do for inclusion. I think it's very important to provide the necessary supplies that an employee needs to be able to complete their job satisfactorily. And I think one of the most important things is that they know they're appreciated. There are no less important activities that the county provides from beginning to end. If landscaping is not done, what do your facilities look like? If the garbage is not picked up, what does your community look like? If you're not picking up an animal that has just bitten someone, what is that family's perception of what the county is doing? So there is, to me, everything the county does, every service that they provide is essential to the well-being of the community. And if you don't have all of them working in concert, you don't have a thriving environment or community. I think each of those services are very important. I think a level of communication between the manager and all the departments where the employees feel like that they can call the manager. Maybe not, there's chain of command, but always know that there's an open door. If there's a request, that it's going to be truly considered. And most of the time, a lot of the best ideas come from the employees. You just need to listen. I'm not the one out there doing their job. Do I know their job better, or do they know their job better? I think a lot of times they know how to do it better than I do. They know how to do it more efficiently and effectively. And I think it's my job to listen to those employees and know that their input really matters.
Thank you, Mark. Scott, let's round it up with you, last one.
A lot of wonderful things have already been said, and I'll agree, particularly with a lot of things Stephen said. That is my approach. I am very pro-employee. Some specific examples of that in the past. Obviously, going out to people where they are is critically important. I've already told the commission, and in my previous roles, I've made an effort to meet every single employee. It took me many months, 6 to 12 months to do so, and employees turn over quickly in some areas more often than others. I've even gone as far as to have my HR director give me visual aids with pictures and names of every single employee in every department, had that in the wall of my office. So if I came across someone who made eye contact, I could use that first name basis. And it's something so small, but it makes a big difference to those in the field, again, and breaks down that level of the suit coat feel and being out in the community. Another thing to take in mind is so many of our employees don't work in 8 to 5. In the past, I've been over areas that had dispatch, obviously police and fire. So going out, having dinner with the firefighters at the station, doing ride-alongs with the officers, those are things I really enjoy because I just am a government nerd. Making pancake breakfast for dispatchers at 3 a.m., just that's something that really stood out to them in any of my exit interviews with organizations. Those were the little things that made the big difference. Another thing I take a lot of pride in is removing myself from the situation. Sometimes being the manager and being that person with the lapel pin and the coat and everything, I don't need to be there. So having middle manager stakeholder meetings throughout the organization, those middle managers, whether that's police or sergeants or fire, as the battalion chiefs, they have the best ideas. They see the boots in the ground guys that are just starting, and yet they aspire for more, so they have a good idea of the entire organization. So removing myself from that, having that open dialogue, and then having a trusted source in that room that says, these are the things you need to know. Here's the things we really need to implement. So those are some good examples of past things I've done. Again, I am a generalist by trade. We have experts for everything we do. So making sure we hear out those ideas, and then when they start to see them execute is when the magic really happens within the organization. And it takes a while to turn a battleship around. I imagine it would be 6 to 12 months before you start to feel that trust and ice start to thaw and smiles start to come out. But that is where the real magic happens, and that's where I intend to be this time next year.
All right, thank you, Scott. Now, we are about 25 minutes over our Q&A. I'm looking over here. I heard there was one more question. I want to make sure we allow some time for the meet and greet.
He has asked for one last question, but if we could ask the finalists to keep their responses to under a minute.
That would be great.
So can you tell us about your past experience with workforce and talent development plans?
All right. Stephen, let's start with you on that question. Less than a minute. Can you do it?
All right, here goes the timer. So I've had the opportunity to actually build and grow organizations, in particular in law enforcement, where we looked at where the organization needs to be, the appropriate sizing, the positions that needed to exist, the skill sets that were needed, and developing that entire HR process, starting with recruiting and all the way through to implementation, finding budget for it, going up to the Capitol to get state statutes changed in order to support that. So it is something I'm very familiar with and comfortable with, and there's my 40-second answer.
All right, thank you very much. Mark, let's go to you.
I think continuing education and professional development are very important. Entity-wide, I know a lot of times when there are budget restraints, sometimes that is the first area that is reduced, and to me, that may be the time that it needs to be increased. You need to be more effective, and you can't do that without additional learning and professional development.
All right, thank you, Mark. Scott, let's go to you, and then Barbara, you'll round us out.
Talent development really comes from professional development, setting the bar against best practices, against best practice organizations. So one of the first conversations I had with the commission was who they saw as best practice organizations. Who do we aspire to be like? Who are our current peer organizations? That's the same conversation I would have with our leaders within the organization. And then staying on track of that and benchmarking against those organizations every 6 months, every year to seeing where they're at. That's everything from our metrics to staffing to the way we allocate funds. I go into communities, and I've been the outside candidate several times. And again, it's not rocket science. I know rocket science is here in the community, but really implementing everything really comes down to best practices.
Thank you, Scott. All right, at this time, I just wanted to thank everybody that's attended here in person, taking time out of your busy schedules and participating. Sorry, Barbara, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm already way ahead of myself. Barbara, my apologies. Goodness.
I want to make sure I have my 1 minute. Timer starts now.
Take the full minute. Take the full minute.
Yes, so workforce development, I've had the opportunity to implement new development plans at the city of Las Cruces, utilizing a benchmark template process so that we can identify when people want to move up, when they want to move into something different. How can we help them to get there? What training do they need? I've also implemented a leadership program at the city, a 14-week curriculum that allows people who are either supervisors or want to move up in the organization to learn more about supervision, the budget process, discipline, communication, and soft skills. So I think it's very important to allow people to be able to have access to the training and development they need for the types of careers they want. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Barbara. I apologize for that. I was looking at the different rotation list of names and I skipped ahead. Let me start again. Thank you for everybody that has been here in person and participating, again, taking time out of your busy schedules, and those online as well, and the questions that have come in to help us with this process also. At this time, it will conclude the question and answer portion of the meeting today. We will allow for a few minutes for candidate meet and greet. If there's a question for those that have attended here in person that you'd like to ask the candidate, feel free to do so for a few minutes as we adjourn to the meet and greet portion. But thank you, everybody, very much for taking your time today.